Good afternoon. Ed Greer with the Minority Report. Today I have with me Mr. Thomas West, the state representative from the 49th District. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Okay. And first of all, Tom, been in Columbus now almost a year, right?
Yeah, actually 10 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
10 months. And what do you feel that you've accomplished in those 10 months, and how do you feel about representing this area, and what are some of your goals for the future?
Well, let me tell you, first and foremost, once again, thank you for allowing me to be on your show. I've been in the legislature now for 10 months, and prior to me coming here, I came down here and reported on your show. And a lot of those things I talked about on the show then are some of the things that we're putting forward now. I'm happy to say that we got our first bill passed last week, the Moses Fleetwood Walker bill, a bill that was presented by Representative Slesnick before, didn't get it through. We was able to pick that bill up and actually get some co-sponsors and march it through. We finally got it passed through the Senate, and the governor signed it last week. And Moses Fleetwood Walker, for many of you that don't know, Moses Fleetwood Walker was the first African American to play in a Major League Baseball. Most people would say that was Jackie Robinson. Well, Moses Fleetwood Walker was from Ohio, did it 63 years before Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
Then after Moses Fleetwood Walker came through, then they banned African Americans from playing the game of baseball. So we was able to get that passed. Last week he got inducted into the Civil Rights Hall of Fame. He's also in Washington, the museum. So they've actually moved that pretty rapidly. So that's a bill that we got passed through the House.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and what's significant about that is most people in the minority never get a bill passed. So we got that done in 10 months. We got another bill that I think, it's going to be real potent to hear. Of course, we passed the budget,
Right.
which helps Massillon in terms of the dam. Kurt Shearing and I worked on that piece of legislation.
Thank you so
put
much.
that in the
It's
budget.
really an important piece to Massillon, so we certainly congratulate you on that.
Oh, thank you so much. Another bill that we're working on currently is a bill that helps local municipalities address the issue of like your water surplus.
Okay.
I know this will help Canton. So when you have a 5% of your surplus, we'll actually be able to use for economic development purposes. That's something we're pushing forward so that local municipalities have more resources to build economic development and then also create more jobs. So
One of the main issues, Tom, that I see not only here in Stark County but around the state is the opioid epidemic.
Oh, yes.
And what I know you've probably gotten many calls about that. What's been going on the state level with that?
A lot. They say, of course, the state put forth $170 million towards the opiate epidemic. In addition to that, I've been working with here in Massillon, of course, the hub. Which is at the old Massillon Psychiatric Hospital.
Right.
And we're currently bringing a new drug actually, that most people don't know about. It's called Probuphine. And Probuphine is a pill that is actually an implant that they put in your arm right here. And that will go in your arm for like 6 months. And it blocks the opiate receptors so that you're not having that craving. So that's something that they're now bringing to the market. Massillon, of course, the psychiatric center there, the hub, Conquest, has agreed to utilize that as one of their spokes in the wheel of their treatment process.
Super. Because that is very, very important because, it's really taking people out of here right and left. So I'm glad to know that you guys have that as one of your top priorities because I run into kids out there in the street and, they have no resources, they don't know where to go, and you try to direct them in the right place, but hey, it's really tough.
It is.
It's tough, and then once you get addicted, it could be even worse. So I'm glad to know that there's money being set aside for that program.
Well, and a lot of the employers out there are now saying, we have a workforce development issue now. We got jobs, but we can't get anybody to pass the drug test or to show up for work. That's a real issue in our district as well as across the state of Ohio.
Big time.
That we got to continue to work on and get people back. And here's the other thing. we really got to start looking at treatment versus jail. I don't know about you, but I don't want my tax dollars going to somebody that really needs treatment and putting them in jail, and that's not going to do anything for them. So, I mean, we really got to start looking at that and figuring out how do we get people in treatment, recover from the alcohol and drug abuse or the drug abuse that they're involved in, and get them back into the workforce.
Right.
Make them more productive. And I think as individuals, we have to start really meeting people where they're at and start helping them through that process.
I would agree. I had the gentleman from the Urban League on several weeks ago, and he was telling me they got jobs they can't fill because a lot of them can't pass the drug test, and that's a major problem.
It is.
And I know personally because I was the equal employment director here for 30 years, and still people come up to me right today, Mr.
Right.
Greer, can you help me find a job? And that's the first thing I'd ask them. I says, I got to be personal here. I got to know where you're coming from,
Right.
and you got to be able to pass drug tests.
Must.
So that's a very, very.
And that includes marijuana. I think the other piece is people think because the state passed, of course, the marijuana laws, the medical marijuana, they actually believe that, I can go out and smoke and expect that they're going to be able to get a job. Well, you know what? That's not the case. So people are still utilizing that against you, and we have to make certain that we address that as well.
Mm-hmm. I noticed you had the legislature Black Caucus here a week or so ago celebrating their 50th anniversary.
Yes.
How did that go?
Oh, that was wonderful. There's a story behind that, as you know. There's a story behind everything. And one of the things that I actually initially asked the governor to bring the state of the state here.
Okay.
I wanted all the legislators to come back to my district so that they could see all the things that's going on with the Hall of Fame, that's going on here regionally, and to get a sense of what we feel here. And so the governor had already picked his place, his final local place, which is going to be in Columbus. So I went to the black legislators and said, hey, look, come to my district. We have $800 million going into the Hall of Fame. You need to see this, okay? Because they're going to be voting on that capital budget that we're going to actually ask them for some resources for. We need them to be supportive of it. So as many legislators as we have from the state come down to our county to see what our needs are, then that way they can identify with it.
Sure.
So the Black Caucus came down and they hosted their 50th anniversary at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, especially during a time when it's real controversial around football and the national anthem and all that. And we were here in our district. So we had about 200 people come all around the state, came to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and then they went to Renee Powell's place the very next day, which was Clearview Golf Course.
Super.
So we had a really nice historic weekend, had people to be able to go and visit some of our historical sites, like the McKinley Monument, the First Lady's Library. They had that opportunity. I don't know if they went or not, but we wanted to showcase our community.
Now, did you get into any priorities that you might be working on on the state level, unemployment, healthcare, education? Did you talk about any of those?
Definitely. The theme of our event was called Back to the Future. And I brought that theme up because it's time for us to get back to the future.
Okay.
It's time for us to get individuals to start focusing on their future while appreciating our past. And I think some of the things that we've done in the past, and many people don't know this, but the Black Caucus is responsible for a lot of the major legislation that we're living with today. Like funding for Head Start. That came from, Ray Miller, who was from the Black Caucus. When you talk about the Alcohol and Drug Department, the Ohio Alcohol and Addictions Drug Department, that came from a Black Caucus member. When you start looking at the minority health disparities, that issue came from a minority. When you start looking at the education, a lot of the different functions in education, there was a lot of legislators, African-American legislators, that produced that legislation. So sometimes when you hear the term black or you hear the term minority, you'll think, oh, it's not for us. Well, no, it is. It's for everybody. Every legislator there is making an impact and will continue. Right now, they're focused on education.
Okay.
You know, what we're going to do is to try to get our kids through our school systems, you know, not having them tested to the point where they, you know, every year you change it. You know, I think our education system right now needs to be stabilized.
Sure.
And I think
Sure.
that's where, you know, a lot of the Black Caucus members are on that same page, is let's stabilize our education system. Let's start throwing some of this wasteful stuff, wasteful politics out the door, and let's get back to working with our kids' future.
Mhm. Now, I know there's some state programs now for education, the programs to educate through the system. I can't think of the word right now. The schools that they set up that's not public anymore.
Charter schools.
The charter schools.
Yeah.
Now, how is that
ECOT.
working out as opposed to what's your stance on that, the charter schools as opposed to public schools?
Well, let me first say my personal stance is we need to support our public schools.
Okay.
Period. We have to support our public schools. We need, wait a minute, that raised us. I mean, that must mean we're pretty stupid then if you need other schools to teach us. I believe we got to get back to the basics of education. Charter schools currently are, they're failing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ECOT right now is talking about going to a system where kids drop out. They want to offer stuff online. It's a business model. You know, in our schools they need to get out of the business sector. They need to get out of the politics sector and get back to the education sector.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm a strong advocate for and will continue to advocate for. You know, I go in, some of these kids can't even write cursive anymore.
Wow.
I mean, they don't even teach them cursive. So you want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, was there something going, how are you going to sign your name? You don't even know how to sign your name. You know, these are things that, you know, it's just getting, we got to get stuck off of stupid and get back to educating kids.
It wasn't ECOT supposed to pay back about $60 million
Ooh,
to the
yes.
state?
Yes,
Because
and of
of-
course that's still in a battle, but they're, they owe the state money.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I think public education is where it's at, because I remember when I was in Old Franklin School and in the third grade, Miss Sibla, I was having problems with a little situation, and she come down, sat down and put her arm around me and showed me what I was doing wrong,
Ooh.
and that inspired me
Mm-hmm.
to do better, because, you know, I was not only getting from my mom, there was a teacher who took time to sit down just for that few minutes, and I never forgot it, and I always tried to do the best I could when I was coming through the public school system. And a lot of it I contribute to her.
And
So-
your story is so, I mean, it's personal. And last week I was talking to Rosenbach, who's a Republican, and I have a bill to repeal the Youngstown plan for states taking over local school districts.
Mm-hmm.
School districts have to stay local. You gotta have local control in your schools. And right now, there's a lot of schools in this district that could be taken over, and we have some in ours. And one of the things we're doing is trying to put forth this bill for states to support, not take over.
Mm-hmm.
And your story, I shared my story. You know, most people don't know. I mean, of course, I got my master's degree in social work. But prior to when I was a young boy, you know, I was a DF student.
Mm-hmm.
I missed less than 5 days of school my whole school career. I wasn't a behavioral kid. I was a child who went to school every day. I was respectful.
Mm-hmm.
I sat in the back of the classroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It was a teacher that came back and put her arm on my shoulder and said, we were talking about Shakespeare. Now, Shakespeare ain't the most lovely topic, but it got my attention. She touched my arm and said, hey, you can do this. And next thing you know, I started improving. She would always come back and check on me. And I had that connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and most people don't know a DF student I graduated magna cum laude.
Wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't because I didn't have the tools necessary. And it wasn't, if I would have had to take one of them standardized tests today, I mean, back then, they would have probably canceled Christmas. I mean, that's how bad it was. So, you know, but when you look at it today and talk about our kids, they're no different.
Mm-hmm.
They
Right.
just want somebody to touch them, someone to take notice,
Right.
and someone to help direct them.
Exactly. I agree. Now, what, Tom, do you think some of the things that you'll be working on in the future that's going to benefit Stark County coming up in the next year or two while you're there?
You know, one of the things that I just got back from Washington, D.C., real passionate about. I went up there last week to advocate for the Reclaim Act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Reclaim Act is all about cleaning up these old abandoned mines throughout the state of Ohio. Why am I doing that? We have no coal mines here in this district. No, we don't. But we have them in the state. And if we're able to get, the bill calls for $1 billion to be released right now, it will not raise taxes, it will not raise the debt ceiling. This is money that's set aside because of the coal industry putting their monies into this pot to clean up abandoned mines. Well, if they release that money today, Ohio stands to gain $59 million.
Wow.
They clean up that line, those coal mines, and then guess what happens? Now they can repurpose that land. When they repurpose that land, they may make winterbine farms. If they make winterbine farms there, guess what happens? Timken Steel's going to be shipping their roller bearings there. It all has a trickle effect.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it is now the state, more money is going to go to the state, which is going to relieve more money for local municipalities. I need them to get off of the local municipalities' back. We need our local government funds back so that we can repair our roads.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, every local municipality is going back to the taxpayers, and they're either getting you through higher taxes or they're going to get you for fees and fines, which nobody has money for. I know I don't. I can tell you that now. So at the end of the day, we got to come up with more strategies to be able to pump more money into Ohio so that we can relieve the local governments. So that's something that I'm real passionate about and have been. We're putting forth a resolution to move forward on that.
Did you get what kind of response did you get when you was in Washington? Did you get pretty good response from that?
We had pretty good response. Senator Brown has a bill that's similar. We're supporting Rogers' bill because it adds that economic component to it. So right now we're pushing the legislators. We're partnering with United Steelworkers along with the Blue Green Alliance, which is an environmental group. But we really like that economic development piece tied to it. Now, what I'm doing right now is trying to gain more information on the reclamation part of it, because the reclamation part of it is very important and very crucial so that our environment is still clean.
Okay.
So that's one
All right.
thing that's real passionate that I'm working on right now, but we have criminal justice reform, things of that nature that we're also working on.
Okay. Now, in regards to education, I know you're a strong component of education. Do you think that the teachers, you know, and I know that this is controversial in regards to guns, you know, you've had, you know, that killing out in Vegas, and now some people are saying that teachers should be able to have access to guns in the classroom. What's your feeling on that?
Well, let me tell you this. First of all, I support individuals owning guns. But I know me. I know that I am terrified when I see someone with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some kids won't catch that. I mean, when we start advocating for guns to go into school, we're going the wrong direction, in my mind.
I would agree.
So,
agree.
You know, right now the House passed a measure to allow gun owners to go into preschools and daycares and things of that nature. Of course, I didn't support that. Yeah, I support you owning a gun. I also support you being accountable for that gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like my car, I'm accountable to my car.
Sure.
And that's not a gun.
Right, exactly.
But it's a vehicle and it's something that I purchased. I'm responsible for it, whether it's in that parking lot or I'm in it.
Right.
And, you know, that's something that's going to come down the line, that whole autonomy, automatic cars that drive themselves.
Mhm.
That's something we'll talk about at a different show, different day. But all of those things, we have to be responsible for it. And the same thing's going to happen with our guns. teachers want to carry guns in schools, then they probably shouldn't be in school.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, I think that that's just a no-no, and I would agree with you 100%. Over here, we were able to get police officers in the school to help out with the discipline, to help out with some kids who might not want to follow the rules, but that's a different story.
Totally.
And that's, you know, a good thing, because now a kid could relate to a police officer in a different fashion. He's trying to work with you and trying to help you get an education, and that's a different situation
Right.
totally.
Especially if that police officer is a caring police officer. You know, sometimes we get people that come off of the battlefield and they've been so involved with, and I'm not saying here in my district, but in some areas, they have police officers that have been on the battlefield for so long that they start looking at everybody as criminals. You know, no matter what you do, I'm taking you down. Not saying that that's happening here, but it does in some areas of the state.
Sure.
And we just need to be there, supportive of them, get the trainings and the skills needed, PTSD training, or, you know, post-traumatic
Right.
stress syndrome. But yeah, so, yeah, I do.
Any final
agree with
thoughts, Tom? Anything that I missed that maybe you might want to say to the public, the people in Massillon and Western Star County?
Well, yes, you know, we definitely have, here in Western Star County, I know that there's plans that are moving forward with several of your community leaders. I've been meeting with Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, and a lot of the different, you know, leaders over in this area. I know you guys have a downtown capital plan.
Right.
You know, the capital budget's coming up, and we want to put forth some of our list of priorities. You know, and obviously, this is something that we want to make sure that our district is getting its fair share. And that's why I'm there, is to advocate for our fair share. So,
Tom, thank you as always coming over. Appreciate it.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the good work.
thank you so much.